You could say that the Nelsons, Jim and Miriam, or Mim, are well-rooted in the farm country of southwestern McPherson County. Jim represents the fifth generation of the family to operate the farm due south of Windham. After graduating from Kansas State University and then a brief stint in banking, Jim returned to partner with his father in the farming operation. Mim, also a K-State graduate, was an extension home economist for a few years before she and Jim made that move to the farm for good. Today, they oversee a 3,100-acre operation, which at one time featured livestock, but is now exclusively a cropping enterprise. And they've stayed on the cutting edge of crop production, from being early adopters of no-till to the latest in site-specific technology. Additionally, Jim and Mim have an enviable track record in community activities and service. Jim talks about how his upbringing guided him down the path to farming. You negotiated with your dad in as far as joining him then?
Yes, I guess that's what you would call it. It was kind of a brief conversation, actually. I told him that I was interested in coming back to the farm, and I think he was willing, and I was anxious to get back to the farm. Banking, I enjoyed banking, but at the same time, I didn't particularly want to sit behind a desk the rest of my life, and so that was our opportunity. I think Mim felt like she'd married a banker, and not a farmer.
It doesn't sound like you had any reservations about that, Mim.
Honestly, it was a shock to me. I mean, it shouldn't have been, because any boy who grows up on a farm wants to go back. But I can tell you exactly where we were, driving down a road, when he said all he'd ever wanted to do was farm, and I thought I knew you so well.
But it turned out.
Oh yes, I was willing. It's a wonderful place to live and raise a family.
Let's then get right into how the farm has changed over the years. Again, in your early days, it was into dairy, but it went from cattle to hogs and now a strictly cropping operation, right?
That's correct. In 2000, I decided I'm going no-till. I sold the tractor, I sold the chisel, I sold the disc. I bought an air seeder, and probably the wrong thing to have done to have sold the tractor. As I learned later, I probably needed the horsepower around, particularly for grain carts and different things. But that was the beginning of it.
As a farm wife, were you responsible for record keeping? Where did your role come through here?
Well, always for record keeping and child care for many of those years, and we often had hired help. And the tradition was you provided the square meal deal every day, so there was always that kitchen detail also. So I didn't get a chance to help that much with the animals, but when there was the need, I'm the type who, I'll do a marathon, what do you need? And I'll do it, and it'll be over. Kind of the Fairinghouse jobs were like that. Or I would also ship the pigs sometimes, take them to the collection point. Then later, with the kids gone and him going to no-till, really a lot less need for labor. And for several years, we did it by ourselves.
I've always tried to keep up with new innovations in farming. Starting in about 2010, we got it was 1184 Road Gator. And this thing had auto steer, auto boom height control, auto section shut off. It's been really interesting. I think it was probably in 1998 or somewhere where we went to Germany. And one of the interesting things was that I saw over there, the small fields in Western Europe, Western Germany, but they all had tram lines. And I thought, hey, this is something we could adopt. And so when Darren came back and started farming with us, we were an early adopter of tram lines in our wheat and our soybeans.
Mim, if you would take a few moments and take us off farm and talk about what you and Jim have contributed to and committed to in terms of local leadership.
It's such a rewarding thing to be in a community where you can interact with people, lead them, they lead you. We are so close to our church, you can see it out the front door. So it's always been a big part of our lives and for our families too. With Extension, Our children were real involved in 4-H, and so that brings extension right into the home. And they benefited greatly, and what we could contribute in leadership was just a benefit to them and everyone else. When it comes to the schools, I was able to serve on the school board for some time. And our most important job was to hire good administrators so that they can hire great teachers.
Let's also devote a couple of moments here to the fact that your son and your daughter are both nearby. Both are engaged in this operation to one degree or the other.
Darren's been with the operation 10 years, and he's employed the Tribine, and this is a whole new combine startup company. It really benefits us out here on the farm because he can, if we have a problem with a combine or something, why it's just secondhand for him just to go over and figure out how to bypass something and go on. And well, Michelle, Darren's wife, they live in Hutchinson, and she's a nurse anesthetist. And Lori and Derek live just about a half mile east of us. It's the old farmstead where Mim and I used to live. It was my great-grandfather's place that he homesteaded. And Derek grew up in Chicago. And so, I'm in the mentoring stage, I guess, a phase of farming here where I'm trying to teach him the intricacies of farming. And Lori has her own little company called Bowercom, and it's in Hutchinson. And she does strategic planning and communications.
Well, lastly, the future plans for this operation with that generation around, and your children are involved in this as well. It looks as if the legacy will be perpetuated for some time. You see it that way?
Well, that's what we're hoping for. We know it's going to be perpetuated for one more generation. We don't have any way of knowing what's going to happen after that.
Jim and Mim Nelson, Kansas Master Farmer, Master Farm Homemaker, class of 2018.